Good evening to another season of SU Sports First and 10. I am your host this evening, Nathan Ash, and today I'm joined by Sean Thistle and Trevor Buffington. This year in sports has been crazy so far, starting off in college football with LeGarrette Blount of Oregon punching a Boise State player in the face after an exciting game, which came down to a couple of points at the end, and with Oregon losing. As he walked off the field, LeGarrette Blount was attacking fans, and then after the game, he was suspended for the season. How do you guys feel? Should he have been suspended for the season, or what's your take on it?
I think it's a fair punishment by the university. I think it's a little bit harsh, but I really don't think of I can't think of a better solution right now. I think something needed to be done. I think the university sent a message that they will not tolerate such behavior, because when he walks around in that uniform, he represents the Oregon Ducks. And when you go out, especially a senior on the team, and you go out there and you do something like that, that gives you a bad name for your team, your organization, your coach, the whole university. So they're trying to send out a message to him and anyone else saying that they will not tolerate this. If they suspended him a few games, they probably would have said, okay, it was just a mistake, and just let him play out the season. I think it's harsh, but I think it was proper. And it was just a stupid mistake. The Boise State player was taunting him and saying things, but that happens every game.
Just to add on to what Sean said, he pretty much summed it up pretty good there. I don't think he would have got suspended if he just would have punched the guy and that's it. But where he crossed the line was when he went after the fans. That's just crossing the line totally. You don't go after the fans. So yeah, I do believe he should have been suspended for the whole season, but if he would have just punched the guy, it wouldn't have been that bad, but he probably still would have got 3 games.
I know we're only into week 1, but what teams do you feel should be in the top 25, and what team in the top 25 should be out of the rankings?
I think a team that should be in the top 25 is a team we just talked about, Boise State. Yes, it was a home game, but it was still a very good game. They took a lot of chances, and they've done what Boise State usually does, trick plays, a lot of trickery, and they played a very good Oregon Ducks team. Oregon was with them the whole game, and Boise State was able to hold them off. You could say it was the blue turf with the blue jerseys or just the atmosphere. Regardless, they played a good team, and I think that they should be ranked a little bit higher than what they are now, at least ranked in the top 25. And it's really tough to say which team doesn't deserve to be in the top 25. My only thing is Mizzou, who's number 25. They won their game. They played a decent team, but for a team that they played, they should have won, I think, a lot bigger to try to be in the top 25. Like Boise State, it wasn't an overwhelming victory, but it was still a good victory. Mizzou, it just wasn't as impressive as I see as Boise State's.
The only real problem I see with the top 25 is BYU. There's no way they should be ranked as high as 9. The only way they won that game is because Sam Bradford went down. If Sam Bradford doesn't go down, they don't win the game. And still, they only won by 1 point. So I don't think they should be ranked as high as 9.
Well, you know what, Trevor? I think BYU is a good enough team to beat Oklahoma because, Sam Bradford is the ex-Heisman winner, but I don't think he's that good. But staying in week 1, what was, in your eyes, the best game of the week so far? Mine had to be Miami and Florida State. Do you guys agree, or do you guys pick another game for that?
Nate, I agree completely. It was the Florida State-Miami game. I'm a big fan of defense. This one had a lot of offense, but what I liked is the young quarterback's doing very well, especially for Miami. 6'4" sophomore Harris against Florida State. I saw him scrambling, making plays. That's the kind of thing I like to see. If I'm going to see an offensive game, that's what I'd like to see. Especially that last drive when he threw that pass downfield. It was just remarkable. It was a second or third down, and he took a chance downfield and made a very good throw, and his wide receiver had a good route, and just that finish. A couple of iffy calls by Florida State, maybe not calling the timeout. Should have they called the timeout? Maybe they could have ran the ball once. And that play at the end, it was a really close call. It was a good call by the referees. It was not a completion in the end zone. But I think a really good game, especially a good rivalry, something that college football needs to keep going, and they're doing a good job about it.
That's what I had down on my paper too. But another good game that should be mentioned is Navy versus Ohio State. Navy went into Columbus, Ohio. They came back on the number 6th ranked team at the time, and they went for a 2-point conversion to tie the game, but Ohio State picked it off, ran it back, and they scored 2 points, and Ohio State ended up winning by 4. So that was, other than Florida State versus Miami, which I originally had on my paper, I would say Navy versus Ohio State.
Since MLB season is coming to a close this year, what are your front-running teams to be in the World Series this year? And also, who are your AL and NL MVPs for the year?
Well, my picks may seem a little obvious, but I'm going with the New York Yankees, the Bronx Bombers out of New York, and the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the Phillies have had a lot of struggles as far as their bullpen is concerned. They've been very shaky, to say the least. Brad Lidge has not been nearly what he was last year, but I still think they have a strong offensive team. They have 5 guys with 30-plus home runs. They're able to hit the ball. They have a lot of Jimmy Rollins, Shane Victorino, Chase Utley can all steal bases. I think overall, they just got one little problem that they can fix. I think they have a depth as far as the bullpen goes, as far as Madsen or some other guys that can close the game if Lidge is having such a stint like he is. And the New York Yankees, I'll tell you, yes, their park may be a little home run friendly, but they're still hitting home runs. And they're doing a very good job at it. Even though all the drama that's been around with A-Rod and little things like that, they've come back this season and they've been on fire. They have good pitching. Jabba Chamberlain's looking good. Everyone's looking good. And Mariano Rivera, talk about a good closer. He's been doing what he's been doing for years.
I agree with what you said there on the Yankees, Sean. They did win the All-Star game, so they do get home field advantage throughout if they claim the number 1 seed, and they are 40-20 at home. But the Philadelphia Phillies, come on now, Sean. The Cardinals have Albert Pujols for 1, they have Matt Holliday for 2, and 3 of their top 5 starting pitchers. Adam Wainwright leads the league in wins. He has 18 wins. Chris Carpenter has 16 wins. He leads the league in ERA. And Joel Pinheiro has 14 wins, and he's 4th in the National League in wins. So how can you go against that starting rotation? And what the Phillies don't have, that the Cardinals do have, is a reliable closer this year. They have Ryan Franklin, who has the most saves in the National League. So I think it's going to be the Yankees and the Cardinals in the World Series. And for my MVP, you got to go with Albert Pujols once again. He leads the league in home runs. He's second in RBIs, only 1 behind Prince Fielder, and he's tied for 5th in batting average. And in the American League, I picked Joe Mauer just because he's on top in batting average. He leads the league in on-base percentage and slugging percentage. And even though he doesn't have that many home runs, he's still a good batter, and he has 100 less hits than most of the guys that are up there in home runs. So I got to pick Joe Mauer.
Trevor, I like your point there as far as the NL and AL MVPs. I have to agree completely for all the reasons you just listed. But I'll tell you, the Phillies last season, they didn't have the starting pitching that they do have now. They brought in Pedro Martinez. He's looking good. Cliff Lee's been a little shaky lately, but we still have what we need, I think, as far as them to win. But NL and AL MVP, I think it's going to be those guys.
But if they can't go a complete game, how are you supposed to close the game out if you don't have a reliable saver?
Well, that's why the Phillies have Uncle Charlie. Charlie Manuel knows what he's doing. All right, they won a World Series going into the playoffs a little shaky because the season before they got swept. This year, the pitching has been a little shaky, but you know what? Just like what they did last year they forget about that. The season's over. October's a new season, and that's where they need to start off fresh. They have a solid rotation, and like I mentioned, they have plenty of backup closers if Lidge does not improve, and the hitting is just tremendous.
So what are you going to put Uncle Charlie out there to close the game? Is that what you're saying?
I would put Uncle Charlie out there in any position. I have complete confidence in Uncle Charlie.
All right, going from NFL to SU football, how do you guys feel their shutout win over Moravian was? And if you had to give out a defensive and an offensive MVP awards for the game, who would you give them to?
I thought it was a very impressive game from the Crusaders. Right off the bat, they went down the field and scored a touchdown off a tip ball, stayed with it. I think overall what I really liked is they ran the ball well. I like a team that runs it more than passes it. They ran as a team 226 rush yards to 143 passing yards. They averaged 6.2 yards per play, so they were moving the ball. And another thing, as far as defensively as they were concerned, they allowed 140 rushing yards for Moravian, but that was with 3 different running backs. So the number's a little bit high, but with 3 guys to watch out for, I'd say they did a pretty good job. And if I had to choose an offensive star, Dave Pavelitz, I believe is how you pronounce it. I talked to him the other day. I stopped him outside of Clyde's, actually, and I asked him, it's Pavelitz for those. They ran so many screen plays. He had that big rush for over 70 yards. He's been putting that team on his shoulders, and he looked like a true leader out there. He knew what he was doing. And as far as defensive, it's Braden Klinger. He had an interception around the 3-yard line of their own goal line, and it stopped another Moravian red zone attack and just kept them out of the game. Moravian wasn't in the game, and that just put it away right there, I think.
Yeah, I had the same players as you had, Sean, but just to add on what he said, I thought they played a well game on defense, and on offense, they didn't turn the ball over. They moved down the field pretty efficiently, and when they got in the red zone, they knocked the ball in.
Well, that wraps up our show this week. Tune in next time. Thanks to Trevor and Sean. I'm Nathan Ash. Tuning off.